Hi again, everyone. Welcome into Inside Sports. I'm Mark Keller, back with you. And since we last spoke, fall has officially arrived. Yes, it has been that long since our last edition of Inside Sports, but it's still raining like it's springtime. In fact, it's rained so much, it affected our coverage of the Smithsburg-Williamsport volleyball match last week. Yep, volleyball, an inside sport. Well, technically, it only affected our pregame show, but trust me, it was affected. You were robbed of an appearance by the one and only Dan Kaufman, the Herald Mail insider who is going to hit you with all kinds of volleyball knowledge. So to make it up to you, Dan will be joining me today with that volleyball knowledge. We'll take a look back at that Smithsburg-Williamsport match and look ahead to what we can expect in the second half of the season. Speaking of the second half of the season, we've reached the official midpoint of high school football's regular season. So Herald Mail insider Bob Parcelletti will be here to discuss that. 2 weeks ago when Bob was here, we were talking about must-win games. This week we have a couple more, as Boonesboro and South Hagerstown face what could be make-or-break situations Friday night. Plus, we'll check in on what you've been sharing on social media, and Bob and I will talk about sacks, headshots, and banners. All that and more coming up when Inside Sports returns. Stay with us.
When you elevate nurses, you reduce an entire town's blood pressure. Specialized medical training means top nurses, top care. Meritus. Healthcare transformed. How do you give a patient healthier healthcare? Give her doctor, nurse, PA, and therapist the same health record. Introducing electronic health records. One patient, one record, one click. Meritus. Healthcare transformed.
When it comes to hearing loss, who will be taking care of you? Audiologist Dr. Karen Hamilton is Hagerstown's hearing doctor, working to improve the quality of life for those with hearing loss. At Audiology Services, Dr. Hamilton focuses on evaluation and diagnosis to provide solutions for treating hearing loss. Using the latest technology, she programs hearing aids to meet your unique needs and ensures they fit properly and comfortably. Audiology Services participates with most insurance companies and will check benefits and file claims on your behalf. Dr. Hamilton and her team also serve the community through Hagerstown Hearing, which focuses on providing crystal clear sound in places such as theaters, churches, offices, and homes. Hagerstown Hearing installs looping systems that allows those with hearing loss to enjoy speech clarity and noise reduction, providing an experience like never before. To learn more about Audiology Services and Hagerstown Hearing, call 301-790-3300. Audiology Services and Hagerstown Hearing, providing crystal clear sound.
Welcome back into Inside Sports, joined for this segment by Herald Mail insider Bob Parcelletti. We're going to be talking some high school football this segment. Bob, it was funny, I mentioned in the open, 2 weeks ago we were talking about must-win games, and here we are 2 weeks later, and we got a couple more must-win games for teams here in Washington County this week.
I think that's about what it comes down to, really, and it's really kind of harsh. But I think Boonesboro and South really have to win these games this week to have a really good chance of making the playoffs. I think they could still make it, but a lot of things would have to go right after that.
That's an interesting setup. And we'll start with the Boonesboro game. They're facing Allegheny, and in both of these cases, we're talking about a local team playing a team that's in their region and who's currently ahead of them in the standings. Allegheny right now sitting at 4th place in 1A West, and Boonesboro down in 7th, but it's very tight right now. And this game really could set the tone for either team going the rest of the way here.
Well, in Boonesboro's part of this is that they have two teams that they really have to worry about above them, and the other one's Catoctin, who beat them the first game of the season. If they lose to Allegheny, that would be two teams ahead of them that every time they win, they'd feed off their bonus points and give them a little bit of a buffer. And then you got Fort Hill, who doesn't seem to be going anywhere. The weak link, and this might be the Southern Garrett, but I mean, you still have something. You end up a loss here, and then you're going to have to climb over a whole bunch of different people to get to the 4th spot.
It's going to be an interesting turn, the way this turns out. Let's talk about the matchup. Both teams coming off of blowout wins, Allegheny beating Silver Oak Academy last week, Boonesboro over Spring Mills, and you covered that Boonesboro-Spring Mills game in the mud. What are you seeing from the Warriors halfway through the year?
Well, I've seen them twice so far, and they are, it's a far different team because Ethan Helebenko, who's probably their main runner, is not that really huge power back that they've had the last couple of years. He's kind of like somewhere in the middle. He can run in between the tackles, and he can get outside a little bit. So, I mean, they don't have that dominating guy, so they have to really go after using not gimmicks, but like sweeps and stuff, a lot of things to set up the different things for them to do well. And that's where the Jacques Rocher, the quarterback, comes in. That's where Max Christ comes in. That's when Isaiah Barnhart come in. They all have pieces of this, and they have to depend on all of them to go anywhere.
You look at the standings here again. We'll put them up here on screen and see that both of these teams have some tough games coming up. Allegheny, after Boonesboro, they still have Kaiser, Southern Garrett, who's sitting third right now in 1A West, and Fort Hill, who's sitting first. Boonesboro, after Allegheny, they get North Hagerstown, Century, who's 4-1, Williamsport, and Smithsburg. So there's still a lot of movement that could be made here. And again, the teams that we're not really talking about, Mountain Ridge, we haven't mentioned. They're sitting at fifth right now. They have games against Fort Hill and Kaiser, and they've already beaten Allegheny. So it really could be an interesting stretch run here in 1A West.
But a lot of things go Boonesboro's way if they win this week.
Absolutely. Catoctin, as you mentioned, right in there as well. They face Brunswick, so that could shuffle things even a little bit more in 1A West. So let's go to the 3A West matchup now in South Hagerstown and Tuscarora. Tuscarora is coming off 4 straight wins after losing their season opener. South, another heartbreaking loss for them. They've lost 2 games this season by a total of 4 points, both to Carroll County teams.
Right, and they got the one win by 3 points in the extra extended version game in the beginning of the season. So they've played a lot of tight games. They've had a couple of blowouts, but they've had a lot of tight games. And the one thing that it's not a criticism, it's more of an observation, but they've had trouble with 2 teams that have been very multifaceted. They've had these teams could run short passes, and they're not afraid to throw, not afraid to run. And usually in high school, you got some teams that just can do one of them. Both of these teams they've lost to were able to do a lot of different things with the ball and prolong the game and make it so that South really had to play hard defensively. And South has been able, they've been a good defensive team, they've been a good front line team, but I think that these 2 teams had stretched them to the limit a little bit.
Well, we talked earlier in the season when South lost to Westminster by a point, how that loss could end up haunting them. This one maybe even more so. This is a game they led 20-0 in the second quarter, and they were up by 33-21 with about 4.5 minutes left, and they couldn't hold on to it.
Well, and I saw Liberty against Williamsport, and they basically run that spread offense and try to run it side to side. They do a lot of short passing to open up big ones down the field. But the sneaky thing in there is while everybody's running side to side, then they forget about the quarterback, and he's a guy that can spring up the middle, and he ran for a 55-yarder against Williamsport, and he made some decent plays against South too.
Well, let's look at those 3A West standings, and you'll see here Linganore, far and away the class of 3A West right now, sitting at 5-0 with a large lead in average points there over the rest of the field. But look how close it is between numbers 2 and 6. Westminster, Blake, Watkins Mill, Tuscarora, South Hagerstown, just 0.6 of a point separating second place and sixth place. And down below South Hagerstown, you have North Hagerstown in 7th, but they're a full 2 points behind South just because they haven't gathered any bonus points yet. But this is really, I think, illustrates, as you said, the importance of this game between Tuscarora and South Hagerstown this week.
Well, consider that South lost this week and dropped from 2nd to 6th. So, that's how tight it is. And any loss is going to, you're going to have teams playing against each other and knocking each other off, but you still have to take care of own, and I think 3 losses is probably the limit of even being considered for a 3A spot.
Well, South beat Tuscarora by 1 point last year, but then lost to Urbana the next week, and that really ultimately was the game that kept South out of the playoffs last year.
Right.
2 other quick games in the county this week. North Hagerstown hosting Williamsport. Norse is 3-2, and we mentioned they just haven't gathered the bonus points that they need to really climb in the 3A West standings.
Well, the teams they've beaten, at least 2 of them are still winless, so you don't get bonus points that way because you got to have those guys win. The thing that here is this is a big game for North to stay alive, but they got to have a lot of things happen. They got to have some people win to help them out because that's a big mountain to climb for them right there.
And Williamsport sitting at 1-4, and this was a team that we talked about preseason having some real hopes for making the playoffs, but they're sitting next to last in 2A West right now and pretty much out of the running.
Well, they've had some problems getting things going. Lincoln Ball has been kind of like the Swiss Army knife for them, running, kicking, passing, everything to get things going. But I think teams are starting to get in the idea that if they let him do what he wants and control him, and we'll stop everybody else.
And then Clear Spring hosting Smithsburg. Clear Spring 2-3, Smithsburg at 1-4. What do you see in that game?
Well, I kind of like Smithsburg in this one. I think that offense is going to help them out a lot. Clear Spring is better, but I still think they need to flush some things out.
All right. Bob Parsletti, thanks a lot for joining us. Stay with us. We're going to have Dan Kaufman here with us to talk high school volleyball after the break.
We've been coming to Rick's for about 3 or 4 years. The staff at Rick's is wonderful.
It is the cheers of Hagerstown.
Everybody knows your name.
They've actually become a lot of our friends.
Treat you like family. They know you by name.
It's nice to be able to go somewhere as quality as this that's not a chain restaurant.
The food is unique. They get creative. It's fresh food.
And they make great drinks.
The word is in. Local, casual, and always epic. That's Rick's Cafe. No ropes. No pyro. No entrance music. No signs in the crowd. It's WWC, the Williamsport Wrestling Club. For over 25 years, we've been promoting amateur youth wrestling in the community. Good sportsmanship as well as overall health is fostered through this exciting sport. WWC is fun for the whole family.
Welcome back to Inside Sports. Joined this segment by Dan Kaufman. We're going to talk some high school volleyball. Dan, I mentioned in the open, everybody was robbed of an appearance by you at our live coverage of the Smithsburg Williamsport volleyball match. But we got you in here. Smithsburg sweeping that match 25-14, 25-15, 25-15. What did you think going into the match? What did you think coming out of the match?
Yeah, going into the match, I thought we were in store for 5 sets. It was an interesting match to kind of, before we got to the gym that night, to kind of sit down and analyze as far as the rosters go, because both teams have a fair amount of depth, and you could envision a scenario where, about this match could go 5 or 6 different ways. And what actually happened was Smithsburg served the lights out and Williamsport couldn't handle it. And so once that happens, and that was basically the whole way through the match, there wasn't much ebbs and flows. It was Smithsburg stayed on the gas pedal and Williamsport just couldn't handle the serving for the most part, which meant they couldn't get into their offense. And, once Smithsburg got the upper hand, they just never let up.
Yeah, I was going to say, a match between powerhouse teams like these, and this is something that Letty Wilkes talked about during the match, that service and passing play, really such a big part of it, and Smithsburg definitely the better of the two on the night.
And that's something that Smithsburg, as far as the serving goes, Smithsburg has really emphasized a little bit differently over the last 3 years. I remember back 9 years ago when they started this run of 8 state titles in the last 9 years. Their serving, they usually had 1 or 2 girls that could really put some pop on it, but for the most part, they were content to get the ball in play with a high serving percentage and then play out the point. Now they're not just content to put that ball in play. They're going to, Katie McCracken served some absolute rockets, and pretty much everybody up and down that lineup, Sydney Scott and everybody else, they put so much pressure on you with that first pass that if you're not absolutely ready for it and fully concentrated, it can get ugly for you in a hurry. And that's an aggressive mindset that Smithsburg's really established over the last 3 seasons or so.
And you mentioned 2 names there, and Smithsburg obviously a very strong team overall, but Katie McCracken, Sydney Scott, really kind of the heart and soul of that team.
Yeah, and already having their case pushed as potential co-players of the year, which is 2 seniors, and fueling Smithsburg, which hasn't dropped a set all season yet, only undefeated team in Washington County remaining. They're just unbelievable duo. Katie does, she's as complete a setter as I've seen in a long time, because not only does she run the offense well, she's a blocking threat up at the net. She's really good at second touch kills when you're not expecting it. We mentioned her serving already. There's very, very little she can't do. She has just a complete control of that offense and that team. And Sydney Scott obviously is a powerhouse attacker. And another girl that's really stepped up for Smithsburg is Elizabeth Lund, the sophomore. The big hole that Smithsburg had after last year was, how do they replace Lauren Daniels, a 4-year starter outside hitter? And Elizabeth Lund has come in and just been amazing for them, averaging about 2 kills a set, and has really given them an athletic presence over there that I'm not sure Smithsburg completely knew what it had, but she's been fantastic for them.
And Lund had a great night on the service line as well in that match. So Williamsport now, on the other hand, losses to defending champ Oakdale, Virginia Power James Wood, and now Smithsburg. No slouches among them. They got back to 500 with a win over Brunswick. Where do you see them slotting in come playoff time in 2A West?
I think they'll be fine. I mean, obviously, they've got to address the serve-receive problems that hurt them against Smithsburg. We know that they have offense that they can run. Kiara Lewis is one of the best in this county, if not the whole state. If they can set her up, and she actually had a pretty reasonable night, even despite the rest of the team's offensive struggles against Smithsburg. They can get her set up. They have some other weapons up front. They've got depth. It's all about, can you make that first pass, get it where you need it to be to run your offense. But, Williamsport, when they won a state title a couple years ago, they were kind of struggling throughout the regular season. And then they found it come playoff time and made that run. And so, until you get into those late October, November games, Williamsport will take a loss to Smithsburg. If they're in form come late October and November in the playoffs, they'll be just fine with it.
Right, that's the most important thing for sure. So Smithsburg kind of in the driver's seat in the Gambrel division in the CMC. Over in the Spires division, the CMC, it kind of looked like North Hagerstown could run away with that, but Tuscarora had some other plans for them.
Yeah, a really impressive win for Tuscarora to win in 4 sets against North, and to do it with really 3 sophomores playing key roles in that match, which bodes well for their future. I don't think North played their A game by any stretch. But yeah, I mean, that definitely opened the race. I mean, you look at the standings as they stand right now, and there's 4 teams with only 1 loss in league play, and North and South are 2 of them, and they're playing this week. That's going to be a heck of a match. South is kind of on the upswing. They only won 1 match last year, but they're playing better this year. Sadie Leisinger's, again, all-county first-team caliber talent for them, playing well again. And they've got some other depth that's come up, and North can't sleep on them. It's going to be a significant matchup. And I'm sure South is going to want to really take it to them as their crosstown rivals.
And North was kind of in the same situation as Smithsburg. They hadn't lost a set going into that Tuscarora match, and they end up losing that one in 4 to Tuscarora. They've got a couple tough matches to come here in the coming weeks. They play Williamsport and Smithsburg in back-to-back matches here in just a couple weeks. So North could have a tough go here.
Trial by fire, but it'll make them better come playoff time, and they expect to see Tuscarora again come the 3A West playoffs for sure. North's got enough depth that I'm not worried about them. Between Drew Wallach and Chloe Coulter and Katie Jordan and some of the other talent that they have there, they'll be fine. Just wasn't their best night against Tuscarora, but Megan Crawford coaches that team phenomenally well, and I don't worry about them. Come 4 weeks from now, they'll be playing fine.
So real quick, we talked about North's schedule. Smithsburg also with a tough schedule coming up. They have Oakdale and North in back-to-back matches. Do you see them still holding on in the Gambrel division?
Well, the Oakdale match is essentially for the Gambrel title. It's almost certainly going to come down between the 2 of those schools. Brian, a shocking upset here along the way. Smithsburg went to Oakdale and swept them, and it was a pretty big surprise when Smithsburg won last year, but that was a sweep at Oakdale. Was a little bit unexpected. Oakdale's going to have to prove that they can handle Smithsburg's serve, and if they can't, I think Smithsburg's the favorite going into that match, and then they'll be set up for whoever comes out of the Spires division. But yeah, I mean, Smithsburg, they probably like having those tough tests right before the playoffs, so make sure that they're in top form.
All right, Dan, thanks a bunch for joining us. We'll have the social media segment coming up right after this break.
Frostburg's program at USMH was definitely closer to home, allowed me to stay at home while I had the opportunity to substitute in Washington County Public Schools. The scholarships at USMH really allowed me to walk out, being able to pay it off much more quickly and being able to pursue my graduate degree at a quicker rate. I would say to anyone considering USMH, allows you to build better relationships in the community and something that's definitely a great opportunity to pursue and leads to a better career.
We've been coming to Rick's for about 3 or 4 years. The staff at Rick's is wonderful.
It is the Cheers of Hagerstown.
Everybody knows your name.
They've actually become a lot of our friends.
Treat you like family. They know you by name.
It's nice to be able to go somewhere as quality as this that's not a chain restaurant.
The food is unique. They get creative. It's fresh food.
And they make great drinks.
The word is in. Local, casual, and always epic. That's Rick's Cafe.
Welcome back to Inside Sports. Let's hit the social media circuit now and see what people have been talking about amongst their friends and followers. We'll start in Boonesboro. This tweet from Judy Spence at Miss J Spence last Friday. A great shot of the Boonesboro gym during a homecoming pep rally. Great school, great and super loud students. Amazing school spirit. Way to be, BHS. Heart emoji. Love the color coordination for each class. Hard to say if the pep rally had an effect, but the Warriors did blow out Spring Mills 47-12 on Friday night. Next up, at NHXC Hubs, the North Hagerstown cross country team tweeted this on Saturday. Just when we thought we would have a dry race for once, the Carlisle Invitational had different plans. Good job to our whole team who left it all on the course, and to Phoebe Meehan who placed 14th. Also, happy belated birthday to 2 awesome coaches, Coach Anthony and Coach Abe. But I want to focus on one photo among these. What a great illustration of what cross country is all about. That's like a small creek that these athletes are running through. No cancellations for poor field conditions here. I love that photo. Our friend Eric Michael, the supervisor of athletics at Washington County Public Schools at WCPS Athletics, tweeted on Tuesday from Black Rock Golf Course. Congratulations, Boonesboro High School 2018 Washington County Public Schools golf champions. And there's a team photo of the champions. Boonesboro finished with a team score of 355, beating Smithsburg at 363 and Williamsport at 367. Smithsburg's Wyatt Roof was the day's medalist by shooting a 78. Finally, the Clear Spring Blazers at CSHS Blazers tweeted this photo Monday, ready for tonight's big matchup of our boys versus Mountain Ridge. Hashtag Blazer Pride. Well, Mountain Ridge came into Clear Spring undefeated, but they didn't leave that way as the Blazers beat the Miners 2-1, and a Clear Spring team that we thought might be down a bit this year after losing 9 seniors from last season is now 7-1-1. Congratulations to the Blazers on a huge win Monday night. Remember to reach out to us or tag us on social media with all the cool stuff that happens before, during, and after the games or events around Washington County. We want to hear from you. On Twitter, we are at Inside Sports OL. On Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, it's at Inside Sports Now. That's where you can find us. Now come and look for us. Bob Parcelletti rejoins me to close out the show after this break.
For the last 2 years of my education, I was going to work full-time, school full-time, and raising 2 young children by myself. I think that anybody who's desiring to continue their education or to advance their career, I think that USMH provides convenient location, affordable pricing, and again, they have instructors that really care about sending their students off with the experience and the education that they need to succeed.
If you add it up, 12 spots a year for 25 years, close to 300 different commercials I've used Antietam Cable Production for. In terms of the experience with the production department, the truth is, we've become friends because we've done it so often. The staff is very, very professional. They make it easy for me to do the spot. That's the biggest thing. And we have a lot of fun doing it. And it works. It brings people to the dealership. And that's all I can ask.
Welcome back into Inside Sports. I am rocking the red for this segment. I'm going to be talking with Bob Parcelletti here. Bob, any ideas why I'd be wearing red today?
Really, I don't know. Give blood?
a long-suffering Washington Capitals fan, I'm very happy to be celebrating the Capitals banner raising against the Boston Bruins tonight. Stanley Cup champions finally. So you have to let me celebrate a little bit on that. So, but we'll come back to the Capitals in a little bit here. I want to talk about your column from last Monday, where you said that the game of football is probably going to go away sometimes and sometime soon. And you mentioned a number of factors: protests, head injuries, low participation. Give us kind of the lowdown Cliff Notes version of that, and kind of where you were coming from on that.
Well, it was kind of a weird circumstance. I mean, it's been kind of out there for a little bit as an idea, but the one thing that got me as I was on the sidelines of a game, and I have been to a few only, and in about 6 or 7 games, I've seen 6 kids, at least 6 players, maybe 7, be ejected from a game. It used to go a long time before that happened. And then I started thinking about how there's so many personal fouls and unsportsmanlike conducts because nobody knows how to play the game anymore. And then I started thinking about it, and it was the idea that NFL is doing its own thing and it's shooting itself in the foot with all its rule changes and all the things. They have to worry about medical things and political things and everything but football. And they're doing a bad job of working on that. And then you turn around and you're losing the grassroots of the sport because of everything that's happened up above with the concussions and all that stuff. Kids are not coming out and playing. For example, last year for football, there were 200 less players in Washington County than there was the year before. This year, dropped another 115. So that's more than 300 kids that aren't coming out playing football anymore. Schools of all sizes are having trouble getting more than 30 kids out. And you want to stop injuries, you got to have more players because they don't have to go both ways. And you know, as it goes, and as everybody worries about the concussions and all that stuff, all of a sudden, kids aren't coming out. All of a sudden, you don't have any small football teams. All of a sudden, the bigger football teams aren't that good. And you're going to tell me the Power 5 are going to stock the NFL forever? So slowly but surely, unless something changes, football, I think, is on its way to a position in the way that baseball is right now.
Yeah, we all made notice this year of team photos and just how small the teams were in terms of numbers. And you mentioned the head injuries as well. I know there are a lot of parents now who are keeping their kids out of that. But something else you mentioned is kind of the rule changes, and we've seen this a lot and talked about a lot in the NFL. There's the new sack rule that a player can't put his weight onto the quarterback, and it's something that's bitten a number of teams, but most notably Clay Matthews and the Green Bay Packers. And this is something that people are up in arms about.
Well, one of the things about the rules, and I mean, they want everything to be form tackles, but the way the NFL is played now, everybody's in pursuit. So you don't want to go head to head, but they're going after a guy who moves and he hit him in the head. You don't want to have a guy that just tackles the quarterback like in a form tackle and take him down because of the way he lands. Well, both guys are moving. It's not going to be one of those things where you just kind of pick them up and take them down for 2 points like in wrestling or something, you know? There's so much action going on, and I understand why you're trying to save and for the health of people and all that other things. But number one, teach them the fundamentals. They don't have to blow everybody away every time they tackle them. Number two, you got to understand that you can't, the movement of it makes it too fluid to make some of these rules stick.
It is a very fast game now, much faster than it used to be, and that sort of takes me to another subject and talking about the Washington Capitals and head injuries as well. Tom Wilson involved in another high hit, another head hit in a preseason game, and most likely looking at a suspension. Is he? And is it possible to take those kinds of hits out of a game when they're moving at the speed that they are?
Well, again, it's a fluid motion thing. The worst thing that can happen in any of these sports, football and all that, is trying to think. You react. All these guys are taught to react. Now they have to think before they do anything. Okay, the idea of maybe hitting high, that's bad, and that's something that should be taken out. But and the things with football and the things with hockey have always been, they've been accepted practices and have been taught out forever. And now you're trying to teach these guys not to do the things that are basically things they've done all along. So it either has to come at the grassroots, or you have to figure out a way to do it to make it so that it avoids it. Maybe they have to use, everybody's got to use bigger helmets, to prevent that, with the face mask and the whole thing, to protect these guys. But there's got to be something that helps them out.
We'll see what happens with Tom Wilson, and the suspension still hadn't been announced as we were taping this, so we're hoping to have that for you today, but I'm not going to let it rain on my parade. Still rocking the red here today. And Bob, thanks a lot for joining me here today. No Inside Sports next week. We will have live coverage of the Boonesboro at North Hagerstown football game Friday night, October 12th. Our pregame Game Day Live Inside Sports edition will start at 6:30. We'll have kickoff at 7 p.m. Thanks for joining us here today on Inside Sports. We'll see you next week.
Hey, your sisters and your brothers, your haters and your lovers, you gotta get up in the streets.